Hello and welcome to this short presentation on the new format of the ACCA F2 exam, which is going to be effective from 2014. My name is Andrew Mower and I am a tutor at Capline Financial in London. So today we're going to look at what the changes are going to mean for the exam structure, so how we are going to change the exam structure. We're going to look at the new type of question, which are known as multi-task questions, and then we're going to look at how to tackle these MTQs as they're known. So how to answer these multiple task questions and what to look out for in the questions. So first of all, your ACCA F2 exam is still going to be 2 hours long. It's still going to be 100 marks. It's still going to be a 50% pass rate, but now it's going to be made up of two sections. Section A, which are going to be your objective test questions, of which you'll have 35, still 2 marks each, so that makes up 70 marks of your paper. But now we've got section B, which is going to be these multi-task questions. You're going to have 3 multi-task questions, 10 marks each, so that makes up the remaining 30% of your paper. So what are these multi-task questions? These questions are going to be a different style from what you've seen before. And we're going to know which areas these are going to come from. So you'll have one multi-task question from syllabus area C, which is budgeting. You'll have one from syllabus area D, which is standard costing. And you'll have one from syllabus area E, which is performance measurement. So you know which subjects you're going to have in each of these 3 MTQs, and the rest of the paper will be changed accordingly so that the overall balance of the paper is not affected. So these multi-task questions can contain multiple choice, multiple response, multiple response matching, number entry, and these 4 you've seen before in the previous format, so the old style of your ACCA F2 exam, but now we've also got this idea of gap fill and hotspots. So we'll look at each of those questions and some examples of each, but these gap fill and hotspots are the new style of questions that you'll see from 2014. So let's now look at some examples of some MTQs and how to go about answering them. There are a number of things that you need to watch out for when answering these questions. Because remember, ACCA F2 is marked by a computer. So we need to make sure that we're getting things like the format right and we're answering our questions to the right number of decimal places, that we're rounding properly, things like that, so that the computer isn't going to mark it as incorrect, even though you know your stuff. So first things to look for when we look at our question are that we got these new collapsible sections. So we can now collapse various areas of our screen, so it makes it easier to read different bits. Each question is going to be made up often of multiple tasks as well. So there can be several tasks within each MTQ. So we need to look out for all those different tasks. In this example, we've got a question which is asking us to give one number to one decimal place and another number to the nearest whole number. So really watch out for that in the question, that you're getting the right number of decimal places and that you're not too lazy with your rounding at the end, and make sure you're getting those marks. Units will also be given at the end of each box, or at the start, for example, if it's dollars, but then look out for whether it's units or whether it's percent, and make sure that you are answering those questions accordingly. On this example, I've collapsed task 1 just to show you how it can be useful. So now we can still see this scenario. You quite often get these scenarios at the start of a multiple task question, and therefore we can still see task 2 and the scenario. We've completed task 1, so therefore you can collapse that and it makes it easier to look at your screen. Watch out for periods changing from each task. So in task 1, it may say calculate for period 3, but in the next task, it may say calculate for period 4. So just be careful that you're not just assuming we're always in the same period. And also, please be careful about these thousands of units that they sometimes put. So if the answer in this question was, say, 14,000 units, and you typed in 14000, then you won't get the marks because they've already put the 3 zeros at the end of the box for you. So your answer just needs to be 14, and that will be it because they've got the zeros at the end. So do not put in those extra zeros if they've already given them to you. Also, you mustn't put in any commas in the middle of your answer, so just be careful of that as well. Something else that's changed with these MTQs is that whereas before, if you got a part wrong of these multiple choice questions or these multi-task questions, then you wouldn't get any marks. In the MTQ section, so section B of your paper, you'll get credit for each individual line you get right. So in this section, for example, we've got 8 questions asking us yes or no for each question. Now you will get 0.25 marks for each of these in this example because there are 8 questions and they total 2 marks. So if you get one wrong, it doesn't matter, you'll still get the credit for those other ones you've got right. And similarly with task 3 here, if you get one of those 2 that it's asked for right, you'll get 1 mark. Obviously, if you get both right, you'll get both marks, and if you get none right, you'll get 0 marks. So whereas before, if you got one wrong, you wouldn't get any marks, now you'll still get 1 mark. Tasks can also be independent of the scenario, so just look out for those. So this task 3, for example, you don't actually need the scenario to be able to answer it. So they can be little standalone tasks. So please keep an eye out for that as well. On to the next example. At the top of this page, there is the completion status bar. And this will be at the top of every question you do and throughout the exam. So this shows you what percentage through the exam you are. And it also has this little drop-down bar, which then accesses a little screen that pops up. And in each of those, it tells you which questions you've answered, which are yet to be answered, and any questions you've flagged. So you can now flag questions as well for later review. And I'll show you how to flag a question in the next slide. This question here is an example of a gap fill question. So this gap fill question doesn't actually have any separate tasks, but what you do have to do is fill in the gaps throughout this question. So each drop-down bar here may have between 2 and 4 different options. So we've seen absorption or marginal in that first box, and then it may be higher than or lower than, and then various other options throughout, and it's all about clicking the right option for those boxes. So that's known as your gap fill, which you may not have seen before. On this slide, we've got the flag button at the bottom. So again, that'll be there throughout your exam. So if you want to flag a question for later review, you can click on that flag question. Your references now, something else that's changed, will be on your screen. So if you click your references button, which is at the bottom left of your screen, that will bring up your tables and your formulae. So the plan for 2014 is to no longer give you hard copies of those tables and formulae. So you need to make sure that you're happy with using that on the screen rather than having the bits of paper in front of you. Please also be aware that you'll often see for adverse and favourable, for NPVs, etc., that it will have a drop-down bar for whether it's adverse or favourable or whether it's positive or negative. So you will not get the marks if you put a little negative symbol in front of your number in these questions. So always just type in a nice number as it is without any symbols, and then you can click either positive or negative or adverse or favourable from the drop-down bar. This is an example of a hotspot question. So a hotspot question may be where you need to click on one or more areas of an image or a graph. So for F2, it's most likely probably to be some graphs. So it may be at which point on this graph is the internal rate of return, and then you click on the relevant area. Or as we can see here, which of these will give the least favourable variance. So you then need to click on the point which is highlighted on the screen. It may be that you get some more marks, and it may say which is the greatest favourable variance. So then you can click on 2 different areas and therefore get some more marks. So just be careful of the question there and make sure you're clicking on the relevant areas. Okay, so hopefully that's helped to understand this new format and these MTQs that are coming in as of 2014. We've looked at the new exam structure. We've looked at what multi-task questions are. And hopefully I've provided you with a little insight in how to then answer these MTQs. Just remember that ACCA F2 is all about question practice, so make sure you're really happy with this new format and really practice those questions before your exam. All that's left for me to say is best of luck with your exam.